G.I. Joe. I'm sure all of us remember the old PSAs, and if you don't, you've probably seen the cartoon. Granted, I was never fully inundated with the cartoon. I didn't catch it a lot on TV. I caught a fair few episodes, and I have been keeping up, semi-interested in G.I. Joe. I did watch Resolute this past few months, and really enjoyed that, so I was looking forward to this movie, believe it or not. I thought it was going to be shit, but I was still going to see it. And you know what? I was pleasantly surprised. The terrible reviews this movie are getting is because they don't understand the vibe of this movie. And this is a lot, and there are going to be a lot of repeats in my review of the movie Crank High Voltage. Because while this is not as batshit crazy as Crank High Voltage, this movie is definitely made with a specific mindset in mind, and it really helps to go into it with that. Otherwise, I think you're going to fucking hate the movie. So, starting off, what's G.I. Joe about? Do I really need to ask? I mean, this is a movie based off a toy line and a cartoon that made no goddamn sense. So, what's it about? Okay, basically the super powerful NATO organization, been changed for this movie to be more multicultural, is called G.I. Joe, recruits the best people from around the world to fight off all situations that normal government or governmental legal issues cannot stop or cannot actually engage in. And it's about them fighting against the evil Destro organization. Yeah, if anyone's familiar with the cartoon, Cobra Commander is in this, but I don't think this is really much of a surprise. Doesn't rise until much of the later parts of the movie. And this being called The Rise of Cobra and the Cobra organization, like I said, Destro is the main villain before he even becomes Destro. And everyone is a comic book character in this movie. I think that's important to note because the story is idiotic. Nanomites can do anything, and nanomites are definitely kind of the catch-all thing that can do anything in movies nowadays, and it's certainly true here. They can melt something, they can kill a guy, they can form something. You could just do whatever the hell the story requires them to do. There's massive leaps in logic, the dialogue is stupid as shit, and the characters just don't make a whole lot of sense, but you know what? This is high-budget schlock. I am pretty sure that that's what Stephern Sommers is going for, because you know what? When I see a ninja with a jetpack, and I see an underwater battle with mini combat subs shooting pulse cannons outside of a giant evil underwater lair, that is a movie that I cannot hate. And that is a movie I want to see. And you know what? When I saw this, I just had a massive smile on my face for the majority of the movie. The first couple minutes, I almost wanted to hate it because it just got such bad press. And it just you kept hearing things about Stephern Sommers being fired and editing problems, and it was just a disaster. And I was thinking this is going to be even worse than Transformers 2, if that's possible. Turns out it isn't. But this is actually a movie I am going to recommend to people. Not a huge recommendation, because like I said, you do have to be in the right mindset to enjoy it. But two audiences that are going to enjoy this: young kids who won't see the flaws, and adults who like the idea of a Saturday morning cartoon in all of those respects come to life. I don't mean the Saturday morning cartoons of now, where they actually try and have some kind of logic. No. I do mean G.I. Joe. I do mean Transformers and all that shit, where they just try and make it as cool as possible by throwing things in. I mean, I don't know if anyone has watched the G.I. Joe cartoon recently. Even the Season 1, Part 1 they just released, I was watching a preview of that, and they have evil kind of Mogwai-esque furry creatures that turn into minotaurs that breathe fire that attach to a space shuttle that Cobra Commander is using to make a giant pyramid that will block out sunlight. Like, it makes no fucking sense! And that's the idea. A lot of this movie is the exact same way, where Destro and Cobra Commander and Baroness, and they are all teamed together, and Storm Shadow are all teamed together to have this huge evil plot with this ridiculous technology that you're never going to find elsewhere. And G.I. Joe has mind readers that are just giant metal plugs that can stab into a guy's head for reading their memories before they die. And just ridiculous pulse cannons. They have a giant training course for the combat subs with what must be 3-story hoops that they're going through in a giant underwater base. As they're traveling through the G.I. Joe base, they have all this shit going on in the background that reminds me a lot of Q-Lab in the Pierce Brosnan James Bond movies. And that is exactly what this movie was about. Stephern Sommers made this movie to be like a Saturday morning cartoon come to life, and he succeeded, and I applaud him for that. Because you know what? The story's not great, it progresses fairly what you'd expect it to be for a Saturday morning cartoon, extended into a hyper-violent adult version. And then you have the characters, who I was actually quite pleased I could distinguish them. I was kind of worried about that before I went into the movie, but didn't have any problems, any troubles. So, the characters, majority of them are maybe not quite what you remember, but still incredible exaggerations that you would expect from this type of movie, and all of them are hilariously over the top. In particular, Cobra Commander is played with such evil, such deliciously evil accents and over posturing that I couldn't help but laugh. And there was a lot of points in this movie, even some of the dialogue is just laughable. I mean, there's this helicopter pilot, he's about to get hit by a missile and he goes, "Oh gosh!" and then gets blown up, like that's gonna be his last words. And I realize I'm almost gushing here, because this is a really fun movie, and I wish people would see that, because you know what? If shit like Transformers can get a big budget sequel and make $800 million plus, then G.I. Joe can make up its goddamn costs and make another one of these. Because while this may not be a great movie, it's at least better summer fare than is Transformers and Wolverine. It may not be as good as Star Trek, but it's worth it for the lower echelon of popcorn fare. Now, the score by this is Alan Silvestri, if I'm correct, and it's done fairly well. It's almost exactly what you'd expect. It complements the scenes well, but you will almost never notice it. It's completely inobtrusive. Not much in the way of licensed music in this movie, so not really anything to comment there, except on the credits, of course. Boom, boom, pow. And the effects. I suppose that's another main thing I should touch on before I let you go here. Is the effects. This movie cost $175 million to make before marketing. Take that in. That's a lot of money. I mean, outside of the new Harry Potter movie, which cost an amazing $250 million. I can't fathom why that was more. I mean, Goblet of Fire was more action-packed. It only cost $150. Anyway, this movie's effects did pretty good for what I think they were supposed to be. There was a lot of effects, such as electricity resembling more steady actual bolts than normal electricity would, and there's a lot of ships and vehicles that look really blocky and almost cartoony, but again, it fits the theme. Now, I do have a couple of problems with some of the effects. Some of the effects just are terrible. There's an elevator shaft in G.I. Joe's base that looks stupid, and more particularly, in an ice base at some point in the movie, they have this set, like the wall of the ice cavern, that looks really like cardboard. I mean, it looks really, really bad, and I can't say much more about that. Outside of that, there are some kind of shoddy effects here and there, but it's not uniformly bad CGI. There is some really great scenes of CGI, in fact, and you would expect it for $175 million. But majority of the times you won't really be contemplating a lot of it, because this is just a fun movie. If you go into it with that respect, then you will enjoy it. So, all said, should you go and watch G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra? If you're in for a silly Saturday morning cartoon movie with a huge budget, then this is a fun movie to watch. There's ninja battles, there's gunfights, the accelerator suits aren't as stupid as you'd think they were from the commercials, and generally that's the whole deal with the movie. It's not quite as stupid as you think. Okay, that's not true. It is as stupid as you think it is, but the director behind the chair knows that it's stupid because he's trying to make it like that. So there's a difference in intentions. So, like I said, I would actually recommend G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. And I'm not going to say it's a great movie. I'm not even going to say it's a really good movie, to be honest. But it is a lot of fun. And I think Stephern Sommers deserves a lot more credit on this one than he's getting. This is exactly summer popcorn fare like it should be, in my opinion. It's just hyperactive fun that doesn't take itself too seriously. And though a lot of bits are cliched, I would have nothing less from a movie based on a fucking toy line. Grow up, people. This is like Hasbro appears before the beginning of the movie. How seriously can you take it?